Hello my beautiful people and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to review this beautiful watercolor journal, and as you can see my bangs are still getting in my face, but don't you worry, we are working on that. But today is not about my bangs, today is about this journal, and before we get into the review I did want to share a little bit about the company with you guys. So this beautiful watercolor journal was sent to me by a company called Mellow, and Mellow is a very young stationery shop that is based in France, and it's run by a couple named Cynthia and Simon. And you know, this video was actually supposed to come out last month, but it got pushed back because I had been struggling with my mental health a little bit. I was completely honest with them about it, and they have just been so incredibly understanding and patient with me. And so I just want to say that I really appreciate that, and I just want to thank them for giving me the opportunity to collaborate with them. Okay, so now we can actually get into the review, and the first thing I want to talk about is everything that's included in the package, and then we can actually get into the details and the features of the notebook. And then I want to do a pen test where we're going to test out a variety of different writing utensils, and then we're going to do a paint test where we're actually going to test out watercolor, acrylics, and gouache. And I think I'm actually most excited about this part because I haven't pulled out my paints in like literal years. It's going to be really interesting to see how the notebook holds up with all that paint. Also, just to see like how technically skilled I still am in terms of like the paint. That's pretty much it. So why don't we get into the video? So the journal comes with a beautifully printed, eco-friendly corrugated box. I actually love the design. I think it's very vintage and minimal, and I can really see myself repurposing this box for like a sticker or stamp collection. And as you open the box, the journal is sitting comfortably inside. They actually have two color options available at the moment. I picked the coral pink color, but it is also available in a blue lavender. The package also came with some washi tape. It is an ochre orangey color and it's gingham patterned, and I absolutely adore it. I think it fits well with the overall aesthetic and brand very nicely. They also gave me some Earl Grey tea, which I think is very fitting with their brand name, Mellow. And finally, they gave me a handwritten note expressing their gratitude, which I actually think is the sweetest thing. I love handwritten notes. I think their packaging is quite beautiful. The belly band even has a lovely minimal aesthetic and a quote that says, "A place for your creativity, thoughts, and plans." So the company's name is Mellow, but their journal line is called Reverie, which is embossed in this pretty gold color on the cover. I actually looked up what Reverie means, and I have to say I love the definition. It means a state of being pleasantly lost in one's thoughts, a daydream, which is often how I feel when I am journaling, to be honest. And then they have their brand name embossed on the back, which is Mellow, which I think is the cutest brand name, by the way. I feel like this company is very thoughtful when it comes to the design and their presentation, all things that are incredibly important. So the journal is sized at A5, just like any normal bullet journal, and their cover is made from vegan leather, and it has this sort of soft matted feel to it, which is actually really nice. And when you open it up, you see this beautifully printed botanical pattern, and it also has a place to write in your ownership details or whatever else you may want to include, along with the definition of reverie. This journal has 160 dot grid pages, and the dots are spaced 5mm apart, and the color of the dots is in sepia. All the pages are made from 160 GSM cold pressed watercolor paper. Yes, you heard that right, watercolor paper. So the pages are thicker and they all have that fancy texture and those bumps, and it's all papery. Any paper fanatic would be crazy about. And they are supposed to be water resistant, suitable for painting, brush pens, markers, and fountain pens, which we will be testing out in a second. The color of the pages is not pure white. Instead, they have a more creamy or off-white color to them, which I actually think is a little bit more gentler to the eye, and they look more vintage, which hey, we all love that. And the paper is also FSC certified, which basically means it's sustainably sourced and it is acid-free paper, so your art should not break down or turn yellow over time. The journal also has 2 ribbon bookmarks and a back pocket to keep all of your stickers and loose ephemera or whatever else you guys like to keep in there. Here I'm just sneaking in one of my own sticker sheets just to kind of personalize it and make it feel like it's mine now. So this journal is designed to lay flat, but because it's new, it's not gonna just automatically stay flat, of course, and so I have to kind of break the spine in by doing what I'm doing here, just kind of going through the pages and just pressing down and flattening each section of the journal. Another important note to remember is that there is no printed index, nor are the pages numbered, which I kind of prefer more because it leaves more room for me to personalize the journal the way I want to. And last, of course, there is an elastic band to help keep the journal securely closed. So just really quickly as a comparison test, I did want to compare this journal to my Art Journal Olive journal because I do think some of the details are similar. Both journals are pretty much the same size and they both have 160 pages each. One of the differences is that the Reverie journal actually does not have a pen loop, but the Art Journal Olive does. And despite both of the journals being 160 GSM in paperweight, the Reverie journal is a little bit thicker because, well, it's watercolor paper, which personally I love. I'm not complaining because I love thick journals. They really give me that, you know, homey vibe. And here you can really see the difference in the color of the pages. The Reverie journal definitely has more of that creamy feel to it, whereas the Art Journal Olive has the pure white going for it. Personally, I like both of the colors. I think they both contribute to your art in their own way, and it's really all about preference at this point. Okay, so now for the fun part, the pen test. I tested out a bunch of different pens and markers, all ranging from gel pens, fine liners, brush pens, mild liners, metallic gel pens, white gel pens, white Posca paint pens, and of course, the Sharpie and alcohol-based marker test. Because we all want to know if our journals are tolerant of being under the influence or not, right? Okay, bad joke? I'll stop. Besides, I'm sober, so I really wouldn't care if my journal was alcohol tolerant or not. Okay, that literally makes no sense. I'm gonna stop and continue with this review. So actually, one of the first things I did notice was that it was harder to make the calligraphy and my writing smooth or neat because of the bumpy paper. But if I just wrote a little bit slower, I did achieve cleaner results. Another thing I noticed was that the pigment was a lot richer compared to the other journals I've used. And I think this is because the watercolor paper is just thicker and more absorbent, so it takes up a lot more moisture, but then leaves behind that ink and pigment. And this is kind of nice because then our artwork is going to be a lot more vibrant. And then aside from the pen test, I did do a quick smudge test because I know some of you are left-handed and you guys need to know this. Also, I thought it would be handy because, you know, for sketching, we would want to do some smudging. I essentially just smudged it after 1 second and then 5 seconds, and literally the only markers that didn't have any smudging whatsoever were the Faber-Castell brush pen, the Tombow Fudanowski, and then the alcohol-based marker at the end there. The most smudging actually came from the gel pen, the Sakura fine liners, and the Tombow brush pen, and a little bit from the Sharpie as well. I think this is just because the gel pen and the fine liner have like archival ink in it, and so it just gave out a lot more ink. However, I'm not really sure why the Faber-Castell brush pen barely had any smudge marks compared to the Tombow brush pen, because I'm pretty sure they're both kind of made from the same ink and pigment. Who knows, I could have just laid down more ink with the Tombow brush pen, I'm not really sure. Of course there's going to be some human error with it. Lucky for us though, the 5-second smudge marks barely contributed any smudging. And then finally, I did want to just do a swatch test of all of the brush pens and mild liners that I use on a regular basis in my bullet journal, just because I kind of wanted to see what all the colors looked like, and I'm gonna go back to my original point, all of them looked just a lot more vibrant and a lot richer. Okay, so now for the final test that we've all been waiting for, the ghosting, the bleeding, and I'm gonna flip the page now, so let's take a look. And drum roll, please. So as expected, the Sharpie did have a bit of ghosting, and the alcohol-based marker did too. I used Prismacolor watercolor, by the way, and the alcohol base did also have some bleeding there. With that said, none of the other markers, gel pens, fine liners, brush pens bled or ghosted through, which is a good thing. So here's kind of an overview of what the test looks like. I had one big concern with this journal if I'm going to be using it for, you know, everyday bullet journaling. And that is that because the paper is bumpy, I'm worried that my brush pens have a higher risk of fraying and splitting a lot quicker than if I were to just use a bullet journal with smooth paper. I did reach out to the company to see if they've had this problem because I do see Cynthia using this journal as her main journal on her Instagram, and they did respond to me and they said that they didn't notice anything like it. So I guess we're just gonna have to use this journal more, and I'll update you guys on it and we'll see what happens. Okay, so now for the second fun part of this video, we are gonna do a painting test. And let me tell you, I am so excited about this because I haven't pulled out my paints in years. Ever since I got into bullet journaling, I didn't really feel the need to paint anymore because I was just playing with pens and markers. But I used to paint like all the time before. I used to use acrylics and watercolors mainly, and I hadn't really used gouache before. And so originally I was going to only do a watercolor and acrylic test in this notebook, but I figured, hey, I am so ready to try a new painting medium. So I actually ordered like $60 worth of gouache paint from Amazon, and it was just so much fun. I do feel like I went a little bit overboard with the amount of paint I got. Like I definitely could have bought the smaller carton, but I get excited about things and then I don't really think, and then I'm just like, well, you know what? I have this notebook now, so hey, I can do a lot of painting. I do think I need to play with gouache a little bit more and kind of figure out how this medium works, so I don't think that I did the best job when it came to testing the gouache out. But either way, it was still kind of nice to just pick up that paintbrush and get my hands dirty with some paint. So in order to do this test, I created 3 separate sections on this page, and the subject matter for all 3 of the paint will be the exact same. So the window with some flowers, and I'm not gonna lie, I actually laid down a lot of water and a lot of paint. So we want to keep that in mind because this isn't like, you know, super thick watercolor paper that is like meant for strictly painting in it. It's also meant for other mixed mediums. So the first section I did strictly watercolor. In the second section I did only acrylic paint, and then in the third one I used my new gouache paint. I think one of the most surprising parts in this experiment was seeing that I could actually use acrylic paint in this notebook, because I've tried acrylic paint in my Art Journal Olive notebook and it just would not lay down for the life of me. I'm not exactly sure why this is, but I'm thinking it's because the smooth paper just doesn't have enough of a tooth to absorb the thicker pigment that acrylic has, whereas this journal has a lot of texture to it. And so it was really nice to see that the acrylic was actually working for me, because I do feel like acrylic kind of gives you a different look versus the gouache and the watercolor, and I would love to continue using that medium in my journal. For me personally, I had the hardest time with the gouache paint, and like I had said earlier, this probably is because this is my first time using it. I kind of had a hard time blending it and figuring out how to lay down the colors. I almost feel like the gouache is like a mix between the watercolor and acrylic paint, but in terms of the journal, it laid down really nicely as well. So I will say, after testing out all 3 of the different painting mediums, I think in terms of the warping, the acrylic gave the least amount of warping, and I think it's because I didn't even use any water when it came to the acrylic paint. But overall, this notebook gave way less warping than any other notebook I've tried painting in. And so yeah, this is a watercolor journal, however, it is a bullet journal as well. So this journal wasn't really made to strictly do very detailed watercolor washes where we're just throwing water at the paper like I did here. And I know I didn't test out any minimal watercolor design here, but but I've seen Cynthia's Instagram and she uses watercolor in her journal all the time, and there's literally no warping whatsoever. So I think if you are more of a painter and a bullet journaler, I think this journal would be absolutely perfect for you. But if you just like pretty journals and pretty paper like me, well then this journal would be absolutely perfect for you too. Honestly, I am so excited about this journal. You don't really see a lot of watercolor journals out there on the market, especially a bullet journal. So this journal really has a lot going for it. The more I play with it, film it, admire it, paint in it, the more I am falling in love with it. I think I'm going to use this journal for mainly like painting in it and writing some of my inner thoughts in, instead of using it as like my main bullet journal. But I don't know, we'll see what happens when it's time to switch out my bullet journal. So as I had mentioned, this company is based in France, so the retail price is 24 euros and then it's $29.99 in US dollars. So all the information about the journal and how to get it is going to be linked down below, as well as links to the other products I had used in the video, along with links to my Patreon and other fun stuff. So you guys can check that out if that's something you're interested in. And now I am going to pull out those gouache paints again, make some more paintings in my journal, and I'll probably be posting them on my Instagram if you were curious. Other than that, I hope you guys are having a beautiful day today or night, wherever you guys might be. And remember, if no one told you they loved you today, I love you so very much.